Okay, we are now ready to go ahead and apply the glaze. Basically what I have is I've got two different brushes here. I have an inexpensive chip brush that I think these things are, like 99 cents a piece at Home Depot. We're going to be using this for putting the glaze. And then I also have a higher quality feathering brush, which is what we're going to use to kind of blend away the glaze and be able to pull around kind of a blushy application to smooth everything out after we're done. So what we're going to do, we've decided to choose a look, to point this out to you, where we've got a really tremendous amount of glaze in, let me get in there a little bit tighter, a lot of glaze in here to add a whole lot of depth of color. And so the first thing you want to do when you're applying your glaze is to go ahead and get started getting the glaze into the corners here. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Just get my brush a little wet. You want to have your rags handy at this point. We're going to go ahead and just really sloppily get it in there, start pushing the material around, making sure that each one of these grooves is wet and has a decent amount of glaze on it. And we're going to go ahead and do that around the entire door. Now you don't want to worry about putting the glaze on the rest of the door yet. The important part is to get the glaze into the corners, because that's really going to be the detail on this door that is most important. And I'm just putting it in really heavy, and you're going to go through a lot of glaze on this, so be under any misconception, but that's okay. That's what we want to get the look that we're going for on these. And we're also going to be pulling color, kind of like heavily veined brush strokes down, so we really need to make sure we get a lot of glaze in that bottom corner so that we can get our feathering brush in there and be able to pull the material back down again. So anyway, what I'm going to do, now that I have the color down, I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to push the glaze right into those corners so I have a big, thick bead in there. Okay. Now, it's just like, for example, doing caulking. That's what we want. We want that big bead in there. Okay. So once we've got that done, we'll go ahead and take our rags. Out a couple of them here. And there's no need to rush with the situation. The glaze will, stay wet for a pretty long time, even if you're using the paint thinner type glaze. And as you can see, it's already kind of coming to life, because the old the oak wood that we started with is very porous. The graining is really deep, and you can see in certain areas that we're wiping off right now that this color is actually getting into the graining, and that's also going to help us wash away any overlap spray marks or cloudiness or blotchiness. So you want to go ahead and just remove the glaze around the door by just continually wiping it off. And the store-bought glazes, you'll probably have anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes before you might have to consider taking it off and doing it over again. So then what I've done is I've taken my rag and wrapped it around my finger, and we're just going to go ahead and create this inside edge right here, like that. I'm not real happy with that part over here. Didn't quite get enough glaze in there. Either that or it got sucked back into the joint there. So we're going to go ahead and hit that again. Taking a new section of the rag. There we go. That's what we're looking for right there. Okay, and then same thing. I'm going to wrap my finger with the rag, and then I'm actually going to clean off the edge all the way around the inside, like that. Then I'm going to take my raw finger, and just so you know, that's why I have the towel wrapped around my leg anytime I'm doing finishing, is because it's a habit when you start doing glazing to just wipe your hands on your jeans. It's quick. So anyway, now that we have our corners cleaned out, we're going to hit it one more time kind of get back down to the original color. And then, now that we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and put the glaze onto the panel. And I like to do, just different parts of the door at a time. I don't like to try to do the whole thing at once. It takes a little bit longer, but you don't need to be as rushed about it, and you can be a lot more detailed. Now, I need to point out, a lot of people will tell you to always brush with the grain, but we don't want that in this case because we're trying to push the glaze down into the graining to get us that look. So don't pay attention to that if they tell you to only go with the grain. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start wiping the door down with our rag. And you're also going to go through probably a whole box of rags on if you're, for example, redoing your kitchen or anything with a sizable amount of work. You'll probably burn through a whole box of rags. It's not a big deal. Probably run about $14 a box, depending on where you live. But just make sure you don't get the terry cloth type rags. You want to use a t-shirt rag. Alright, there we go. It's looking pretty good. Now, like I said, you're going to have a lot of time to work with, especially if you bought a store-bought glaze. So there's no rush. Go in there, clean up areas with your finger. And then once again, take the rag, really clean off some of the areas. And then we're going to go ahead and glaze up the stiles and rails. And once again, you want to be really liberal with the glaze. Don't be surprised if, for example, if you're using like a glaze coat, to use that as your, like the Glaze Coat 250 is actually a very, very, very good glaze, and I'd recommend it for if you're not mixing your own colors. Very, very good product. Ooh, not liking that. Okay. There we go. But anyway, you're going to need to probably, for a standard size kitchen, like maybe 20, 25 lineal feet uppers and lowers, you can expect to go through 2 or 3 quarts of glaze on a project like this. So go ahead, finish up getting the glaze in there. There we go. And okay, there we go. Now you don't want to let the glaze sit on there too long. Aside from drying, you do run the risk of actually pulling up some of the color that we sprayed on as far as a toner coat. When you're doing the paint, you don't really need to worry about it, but with the light toner coat that we did, we put on a very, very, very thin translucent film, and it could, well, at least with colors that we're dealing with, this is, the ugly pink pickled oak. If a little section comes up, you're going to end up stripping and redoing the whole door. So anyway, all I'm doing now is I'm just taking off excess material and getting out the really apparent rag marks, and you can see everything's kind of blended together really well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here with the chip brush again. Once again, I'm going to dry the brush out almost completely, get most of the color off it, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to pull little bits of glaze down the door like that. Same thing here, going in the direction of the grain because we want that to match. I'm going to put a couple of streaks out here. Then I'm going to take my feathering brush and I'm going to start feathering the glaze away.